Hi everybody, welcome to Mixed Media Creations with me, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill. Today we're working on a mixed media abstract canvas. Links to supplies can be found in the description box below. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button in the lower right hand corner. Select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. Now this canvas was inspired by the Crafters Workshop stencil and the beautiful autumn colors that are surrounding me right now on Vancouver Island. So I'm taping down the stencil. It's called Crazy Waves, and I'm going to apply this light and fluffy modeling paste also from the Crafters Workshop. Now I just don't want it to move, and I'm a little bit worried that because I want to basically put the modeling paste on every part of this stencil, I don't want it to move. But once I started at the top and I got that section done, basically the modeling paste itself held it down. Now this is my first time using the Crafters Workshop light and fluffy modeling paste, and I loved it. It was very easy to apply. I'm applying it with an old credit card or key card. And as much as I'm trying to get it smooth, I'm not overly worried about it. It didn't seep under the stencil. So it's just the right consistency. I'm applying this to an 11 by 14 pre-gessoed canvas. So once I'm happy with the distribution of the paste, I pull off the stencil and just clean up the sides a little bit. I'm loving the look of this. So now I'm going to use my heat tool and dry this. I could have waited to find out how quickly it dries, but I'm just not the patient type. I find cleaning stencils, it's imperative when you've used modeling paste on them. Now I hemmed and hawed a little bit about the colors, and then I decided that I'm going to use the color scheme, an eggless color scheme. Now if you look at, I'm going to put the link to my technique tag video where I talk about an eggless color schemes. I made these tags, and basically I'm going to duplicate them in the order that they are. Basically I'm following the color wheel, and I'm applying the acrylic paint pretty much straight out of the tube, starting with the lightest color and moving up, blending it as I go. And in a minute you're going to see more. One of the things I find difficult with the canvas, if I put it up so high that you can see the whole thing, then you lose some of the detail. But then I need to remember to check and make sure that it is on screen. So I'm moving on up and taking the time to blend the colors as they overlap. I'm using a fair bit of paint and I'm keeping it wet, and I'm moving quite quickly, not as quickly as you see here. This is sped up 4 times. On this section of the canvas, I'm actually mixing 2 colors to get a whole different color because I want that gradation of color. And I'll put a list of the paints in the order that I have them in case you want to achieve these rich, vibrant autumn colors. This one I believe is deep violet. I find using my fingers really helps me get it into the nooks and the crannies that the modeling paste created. Way faster than I could achieve it with a paintbrush. This last color is Diox Purple, although it really reads very, very blue on camera. In real life, it isn't that blue. So that you can see these vibrant jewel tone colors. And if you want to come back to this part of the video later, you'll see how the colors on this canvas change. So in my gift package, I also got a jar of gold gesso, which I didn't even know existed. So I am painting some watercolor circles that I had stamped with my press. And these are just making use of unused or watercolors that just were a definite miss. So on the backside you can see watercolor. So there you can see again the richness of the color. So now, because I want to bring out the texture, I think that's really key, I'm taking gold and I'm getting it onto the palm of my finger, and it's almost like dry brushing. It's getting very, very little, and I'm just rubbing it with the pad of my finger onto this part of the raised texture. Now, when you are wanting to bring out texture of modeling paste or other things, you can add contrast. You can go lighter, you can go darker, or you can add metallic. And on this piece, I do a combination of adding metallic and adding black. Now here you see me, I brought out my Lindy Starburst sprays. Because the Starbursts have mica powder in them, and the mica is a different color than the spray, it's adding to the colors and textures of this canvas. It's enriching all the textures. Now here I'm adding black to this orange one, and you can just see how the texture suddenly pops. And the colors just are becoming that much more richer and more interesting than if I had left them like straight out from the container. So I spent a lot of time, what you're seeing here, sped up, as well as some time off camera, adding the Lindy sprays, adding black, adding gold, going back and forth till I just liked what I saw. Here I discovered my Lindy's Magicals. I have one set of Lindy's Magicals, rarely been used, but I thought, oh, this one might be perfect. So I even had, this one was kind of lily orange, and so I sprinkled that one onto the orange. And I'm letting it kind of soak in, but I am drawing it in between. On the deep violet, I'm using a dry brush technique with a stencil brush and just adding a little bit more color. And already you can see how certain parts are showing and certain parts aren't. This is another purple magical that I had, and I believe this one has some teal in it. I questioned whether I wanted to introduce teal because that is a different color, but I really like how it turned out in the end, and it's kind of an unexpected surprise. And sometimes I like doing that on my pages and on my canvases. Now I wish you could see what I see in real life, because the shimmer and the texture is only partially captured on screen, on the with the camera. I'm just applying layers and then adding water, making it flow. Lots of slow playing around. And again, this is sped up about 4 times. Plus, I spent another good half hour just playing with the colors, adding layers and building interest. And I'm liking how the gold, in some cases bronze, in some cases the teal, that little bit of metallic is showing up on the paint. Now the top and the bottom are just plain paint. There's no texture there. They were looking a little bit flat. So I do actually take some sprays and spray it onto the flat surface just to give them a little bit more interest. I'm not sure if that ended up being on camera. Oh, there we are. I'm putting the gold on. And that just added a little bit. Now the risk I'm running here, because I'm adding the Lindy Starbursts, they are not permanent, so they will reactivate. And there you get kind of a glimpse of some of that shimmer and shine, and see how the textures have come out all the more with the addition of the black, the gold, and the Starburst and the mica spray. Now that I have the black on the texture, I felt I needed to have a little black around the edges. So I'm just kind of shading the edges with the black. I do end up painting the sides black as well. Now I have these gold circles that I punched out of watercolor paper, and I picked watercolor paper for it because it's heavier and it also has that little bit of texture, and I thought that would make a nice addition to the canvas. So right now I'm just kind of playing with these circles. I've got a couple different sizes of circles. You're going to see me add them. I'm playing with the orientation. I kind of overlap them at some point in time. I put them one on top, the small one on top of the big one at some point, and I even drag out some dragonflies, black dragonfly silhouettes, and add them on top of the circles. So I had a whole lot of variations and different plans. And then I left it overnight. I wasn't sure how I wanted to finish it. So as this was hanging on my wall, really liked it, but it looked a little flat with the circles. So I had the idea that I'm going to add some texture to the little circles. So here you see me using, again, the light and fluffy modeling paste from the Crafter's Workshop. And I'm just applying it, giving it a good coat, and just making sure that there's texture. I'm not trying to make every circle the same. I'm just making sure that there's texture. Then I dry this with a heat tool. Once it's dry, I get out my gold gesso from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm applying that. Now the difference I find between the gold gesso and my gold Liquitex Basics is this seems to be a little bit more opaque and covers a little bit better. Often with the gold, when I'm applying it in situations like this, I have to apply, 2 or 3 coats to get the depth of color that I want. And I didn't find that with this gold gesso. If you're wondering why I'm using all the Crafter's Workshop's products in this video, I recently won in their giveaway, their 10,000 subscriber follower on Instagram, and I won these products from the Crafter's Workshop, and I was beyond ecstatic when I saw this stencil in amongst the gift package, because this was one that I had kind of earmarked as I need to get this. This one makes me happy. So I wanted a little definition here, and I put the stencil right back on, and I'm adding black on the areas that divide the waves. And I'm using a dry brush technique with a stencil brush, and I'm just applying it and building up the color. So I could have done this with all the texture, even in the center parts. Instead of using my finger, I could have applied it back on and put it on in this manner. But I like the unpredictability of using my finger and other tools. I think this might have given me a little too much coverage. So I like how the black just kind of added a little definition there. And if black is good by itself, then black with gold on top is going to be better. So I used my gold Liquitex Basics here instead of the gesso. The gesso is a little bit runnier, and I just didn't want that running on into the stencil. And because I wanted to do the dry brush technique. So now I'm just adding a little bit of gold on top of the black. Like I said, a big part of this, the time that it took me to complete this canvas, was spent doing very little things and building up layers and color very slowly. If you try to rush that process, you're not going to be happy. You need to apply layers over time. So now I'm putting the circles on here, and while many people liked the versions where I had the dragonflies, I wanted to challenge myself and not do that. And I think I might, do a similar one, maybe different colors with the dragonflies, because I absolutely did love it. I just wanted to do something a little bit more different and challenge myself. Too often I have something with words and something with dragonflies or butterflies. I just wanted to do something different. So here I'm edging the little circles with black paint, and I'm finding I don't think they stand out quite enough. The texture that's there isn't quite enough. So now I'm taking the makeup sponge with the black paint, and it's very dry paint, and just rubbing it over the texture that was created with the modeling paste. And yes, this is where I knew that this was the right decision. I love, love, love how this turned out. That little bit of addition of the texture and bringing it out with the black paint really made this all come together in my mind. I'm using Aleene's tacky glue, and this is a clear one that I just found. And I'm putting the little circles onto the bigger circles first. Now I'm not trying to make sure that this is absolutely fast and flat down. I like the idea of it kind of being a little bit 3D and coming out from the canvas. Because I think that just adds to the overall finished product. So after playing around with the placement of the circles, and then I had to get out the dragonflies again, and this would have been perfectly lovely with that. I had some bigger ones, and you'll see me doing something with that later. So off camera, I also glued these circles down where they are. And I'm hoping that your eye just kind of travels down. A person could hang it this way or the other way, and this is a drop-in frame that holds canvases. And there is the finished piece hanging on the wall. I absolutely love this piece. I think so many of the components came together, everything worked. I have tons of ideas for using this stencil on upcoming projects. I've put a link to the stencil that I've used here, as well as the Crafters Workshop products. I loved using them. I'm quite happy with the end results. Now I'm trying to figure out how to name this one. This one's going to be going and hanging up in a gallery, and I'm not sure what I want to call it. So if you have any ideas, leave that in the description box below. If you're interested in purchasing this or any of my other art, send me a private message. I am quickly approaching the point where I'm going to try to sell my art. So if you're interested, leave me a message. Thanks so much for watching me. And we'll see you for the next video. Bye for now.